season, Kaepernick was taking a knee.
Heartbroken when I saw that video. I almost couldn't finish it.
It was a pow. We got to start making changes.
There's a virus in police departments across this country.
If I rule the world, cops harassing.
Good cops know who these bad cops are.
You have every right to be angry.
Can you tell me why? Every time I step outside, I see my die.
You have no right to perpetrate violence on the very communities that you are standing up for.
A lot of people have been using my father's words.
That all men are created equal.
The only pathway to do this is through nonviolent means.
I'm letting you know that it ain't no gun they make that can kill my soul.
We will bring you justice, I promise.
But if God got us, then we go be all right.
Start making some changes.
Real Talk with Kasim.
Let's push things forward.
Hey, the show that aspires to inspire before we expire.
Let's push things forward.
Peace, light, love, and liberation. Peace to the kings, peace to the queens. Welcome to Real Talk with Kasim. Tonight is a special night. Pardon us for, lately we have been having some technical difficulties here at Real Talk with Kasim, and we still having them. But if the Creator wills, we will work it out. But we're here, and we have, I call him the honorable. You know what I mean? We have the honorable brother Marvin Walker with us, and we're going to talk about revolutionary love. But first and foremost, we like to thank the Creator of all motion for allowing and blessing us with the ability to be able to rise, which we call live another day and receive another evening. For this, we are truly grateful. With that being said, let me start it off as we go like this. And always remember,
information is free. It's what you do with it that costs. Read, study, and research. Peace.
Love is more than a feeling. Love is a form of sweet labor. Fierce, bloody, imperfect, and life-giving. A choice we make over and over again. If love is sweet labor, love can be taught, modeled, and practiced. This love engages all of our emotions. Joy is the gift of love. Grief is the price of love. Anger protects that which is love. And when we think we have reached our limit, wonder is the act that returns us to love. But revolutionary love is the choice to enter into wonder and labor for others, for our opponents, and for ourselves in order to transform the world around us. It is not a formal code or prescription, but an orientation to life that is personal and political and rooted in joy. Loving only ourselves is escapism. Loving only our opponents is self-loathing. Loving only others is ineffective. All three practices together make love revolutionary. And revolutionary love can only be practiced in community. With that being said, I want you all to please help me welcome to the stage, because we call this a stage, even though we on a computer. Help me welcome the brother, man, the humble, who I call the honorable. Once again, I call him Real Talks with Kasim's political and political correspondent, and dealing with anything dealing with history, anything that's going on. We can reach out to our brother, our beloved brother, the King, Marvin Walker.
Going on, family? What's good?
Peace and blessings, brother. How you feeling once again, brother? How are you feeling? How's the family?
Oh, everybody's good, man. Just been in those books studying, getting ready for this doctorate program at Morgan State.
Right.
Starting in September.
Starting in September.
Well, it was a little delay. because of the funding, but
Right. Understandable.
funding looks like it's been corrected. So hopefully we're starting in September.
Okay, got you. Now, how's all of the children? How are they?
Oh, they're good, man. Everybody's doing their thing, in school or working on their careers.
And for those who don't know, Brother Marvin has recently got married, so we have to ask, how was the wife, man?
Oh, she's good. She's in school as well. So, everybody's working. Everybody's reading, working, or planning their life and future.
Right. So give everyone our love, man.
Indeed.
Give everyone our love, please, brother. Now we're gonna jump right into it because we was late and coming in, and we're going straight into it.
Yes.
I reached out to Cuzzo. We talked, we spoke, and the brother wanted to take love by a different perspective, a different angle, a different trajectory. And the brother said, let's deal with revolutionary love.
Well,
come on, brother.
Yeah, well, I was thinking about the topic because I knew you were going to be talking about love and relationships and things like that. And so my thoughts were all been on the Black Panther Party, because I think that the Sister Maritza in the building, what's happening. I just think that they saw it, young brothers and sisters who really saw something fundamental that we seem to kind of miss. And when I talk about the title is Revolutionary Love. Hey, what's going on, Patricia? Good seeing you. Revolutionary love and undying love for the people, putting love on a different plateau. But I happened to get to listen to the replay of your show and a lot of the comments that were said. And the first thing I thought about was that because I absolutely no expert, not at all, in regards to the love thing, I'm not an expert, but what I was looking at is just this idea of our model for love, our models for how we move in this particular world. W.E.B. Du Bois said at the turn of the last century that we live through this idea of a double consciousness, the way we see ourselves and the way others see us. And as Black folks in America, there's no way of getting around that. You have to understand how other people see you in this world, because that can be a matter of survival. But my thing in terms of revolutionary love is the idea that our models that we use are decadent models to measure our love. So when we talk about things like cheating or relationships and all of those other things, the models that we use are decadent to begin with. So how can we not fall prey to all of the other particular elements? In fact, I think it was a psychiatrist, Eric Fromm, said in the capitalist society, their love is almost transactional. So in other words, it's not about loving the person. It's about what value that person can bring to us. We see them as a means to an end, as opposed to being in love with a person, which would be that they're the end and to be all. But it's transactional. So as soon as someone gets a little older, we're looking for someone else, So we're not necessarily valuing the person, but how the person makes us feel, how that person elevates us when we walk with him or her around, what other people are going to say when they look at us. And then when they lose that value, then we lose our interest. So how can we even call that love? That's not even a model for anything but ultimate destruction in a capitalist society, which is why he said you can't love in a capitalist society. So there's that model. But I'm thinking about a model of revolutionary love as a love where we see everyone that exists on the planet Earth and the planet Earth itself as an end, as opposed to a means to an end. So then when we see things as an end, then we treat them with that honor and respect that they deserve. We don't want to pollute the planet. We don't want to destroy the planet. We don't want to do any of those things because we feel the ideas of being connected to these particular things that we have a particular relationship with. We share the earth with them as opposed to dominating the earth, But my thing is the whole model of how we're moving. If it's going to be revolutionary, revolutionary means a total change in our total outlook of the way we see, the way we view the world, the way we move through the world. And one of the things I've been like doing a lot of reading, as I told you, over the past like year. And the one thing that should be obvious, and many of our ancestors knew this, so it's not saying anything new, or it's nothing new to say that the system that we live in, the system that exists right now, whether it's relationships or just economics or whatever it is, can't work. It wasn't meant to work for anything but a very small percentage of the people. And I'm not just talking about Black folks. It wasn't meant to work for just about anybody. Most folks are nothing but pawns on a particular chessboard. So we enter our politics, our love, our relationships, our economics, using a very model that was designed to destroy us in the first place. Be the damn model for the capitalist empire.
That's right.
Extracting labor from Black bodies and still extracting labor from Black bodies today. So unless we, the people, create an ultimate new system, this system can't work. So look, give you an example. We try to come up with every idea to reform policing, right? Instead of understanding what was the purpose of policing in the first place. Slave patrols and to protect property. So what makes us think that we're going to change that particular thing that was designed to do exactly what it does? It kind of reminds me of the Bible when Jesus says that you can't pour new wine into old wine flask. You know, because that wine is going to become corrupted by the very wine bottle that you put it in. But we keep doing it. So we keep trying to fix that hoopty that we have, this particular system that'll let a few people in. A couple of Negroes, Latinos, and others will get some crumbs. And we're happy with that particular system. But if we're talking about a revolutionary love, and that's what I'm talking about,
right?
It's a love for all humanity where we all eat, where we all get to live in peace, where all of our children get to do the thing that they want to do and not necessarily have to do the thing that's going to make them money, as opposed to us saying, go get a good job or go do this because this career is, this is a career that's opening up. But that ain't in their hearts. And we push our children to do that. And we push people to do that, to make decisions. But in the capitalist society, we all got to eat. The problem is that whether it's Bitcoin, you call it, or Black economics, or all these other things, or Black capitalism, we're still talking about fighting over crumbs that exist. 80% of the global, 80 to 85% of the global resources are in the hands of about 20% of the people. So no matter how you slice it, a large portion of the people are going to always be fighting over crumbs. The issue is this revolutionary love just says that just because I make it, that's not enough. You know, it's revolutionary love is beyond phenotype. Oh, well, we got the new Black commissioner, or we have a new Black Supreme Court justice. We got to get revolutionary love, loves Black people. That's where we start. That's where we enter, but that's not where we stay. But we also understand that phenotype doesn't mean anything. It's about how those people represent. So it's not enough to get the first Black this or the first Black that. Revolutionary love says, if you don't represent the people, then we don't want you in. In fact, if it's real revolutionary love, it starts from the womb. We start cultivating candidates. See, by the time we get candidates, whether they're Black, white, Latino, or whatever, they're already corrupted when we get them. They're corrupted because they go into a corrupt system. that's ultimately corrupted. Now, I'm not saying we should stay out of that system, but when we go in the system, we already have our ideas of how we're going to move and groove. So I look at it as revolutionary love is like slaves on a plantation. Okay, we know what our lot is now. We envision a freedom for the next generation. But right now, I'm just going to break a tool. If this institution is the institution that ultimately enslaves us, then what we're going to do is make sure we interrupt the goddamn system every way we can do it. Now, we all can't do it in the same way. Everybody got to eat. It's
Right.
like the Panthers talked about, survival pending the ultimate revolution, where all of us get to party and all of us kind of get to have our heaven on earth, heaven on earth. But that's the thing, wherever we at, we have to think in terms of it being, we have to be maroons everywhere we go. So when you're on a job, I may not be able to say it outright, or some of us are in the position we are, but I'm going to school the young cats like you do that are on a job to let them understand. And so they can go on and school some cats. I may not be able to say it the way I want to say it in the school system. And listen, that's ultimately, some people say, man, you got to be you got to be who you are wherever you go. Why? We're trying to be strategic. One of the things my mentor taught me, my Jegna, Baba Shagun, peace be upon him, he rest in peace now, always told me, look, we got to operate like snipers in this society. He said, the one thing about an expert shot is, one, when he takes that shot, he ain't gonna miss. It's gonna be the kill shot. But if he miss, he makes sure he has an exit plan. That's how we have to ultimately love. That's what I say. That's the move, I should say. That's what we call revolutionary love. It's about liberating all the people, all the time. And we measure our success not by a few Negroes who make it. And that's cool, because we need that as well. But by the masses of people who get through. We don't want that, the idea of trying to slide a couple of people through the eye of a needle. We want the masses of people. That's how we measure success. And my thing is simple as this. I don't want nobody to hurt. I don't want anybody to go without housing. I don't want anybody to not eat at night. I want people to have food, clothing, shelter, and safety. That's the floor. That's revolutionary love. That's the floor, or should be the floor, for every human being that exists in a society. Now, for us, we're coming in it. How we enter? We enter in a room with blackness, but we can't ignore all forms of discrimination that exist against women, against gays, against transsexuals, because if we allow, and that's why it's revolutionary, any level of discrimination to exist, it will end up backfiring on us and eating us alive. So what makes it revolutionary is that it's not selfish. It's not just between me or my mate, or me or another individual. It's about moving the whole community through, which, look, ultimately that means that we have to overturn the whole system by whatever means are necessary to do that. Because if everybody's going to eat, then we have to change the system, because it was never designed for anything but a small portion of the people, most of them white, most of them male, and any few Negroes or Latinos or other people of color who are willing to sell their souls for 10 pieces of silver, for 15 or 10 pieces of silver. So that's my intro to it. A long intro, but that just come through. That's what the spirit took it.
And that's what we do. We follow the spirit.
Absolutely.
The King, Brother Harold McKinney, I had to call the brother and tell him to watch this show right now.
Absolutely. And peace to the brother,
Yes, he says
our teacher. Let's see
right.
that right here.
He says, very well explained. As you said, the foundation is rotten to its core and was never designed for any other purpose than to suck our economic, mental, creative blood.
Peace be.
We've got to come to terms with the fact that the system is a humongous predatory parasite, and we are the prey.
No question. And see, the elder made it plain. That's that wisdom. He cut right to the chase of what the particular issue is. So again, if it's going to be revolutionary, we're operating from the concept of Ubuntu, which means I am because we are. And because we are, therefore I am. That's it. That's how we have to roll in this particular society. Or we ain't going to, listen, we ain't going to win. We ain't going to win.
So let me ask you this, brother.
Right.
When you hear of what's going on with black folk throughout this world, right? In particularly the designated areas in which we reside in this country, particularly. And we hear of phrases deemed as power to the people. Right. Power is in the people. Right. But yet you have black folk whom are being discriminated in numbers, in astronomical numbers.
Right.
And then we say, well, how can we worry about the people when some of those whom are the people are those who are our predator, or those who are giving it to us from our backside? So shouldn't we just worry about us as black folk, or do we include everyone under the philosophy of like the Black Panthers, where power is with the people?
So I don't understand the question. You're saying you mean just us?
Yeah, when I said that.
Okay, well, my thing of just us is that's where we enter the game. I mean, look, everything has a starting point. And, it reminds me of the theory what Confucius talks about. He says that, look, the primary unit is the family. So you start the family, builds, then you build from the family to the city, to the state, to the country, and the world. So we're entering through the family. Our family is the black family. We ain't going to stay there because we're trying to liberate the planet. But we're ultimately starting with the people that look just like us.
There you go.
Typically. Okay. I mean, that's our entry point, but that's not where we're going to stay.
Hey.
What we've seen over the centuries is something that's predatory, that don't give a damn about no people. We're saying this is our entry point because this is where we unite. But we also have to understand that, look, we can't ignore the issues of class. Because if we ignore, we're starting with the cult race, but we don't ignore class. They kind of intersect. Class, gender, and all those other things will ultimately intersect. We start with blackness, then we have to deal with all those others, because if we don't, then if we do get free, those black folks who may have some greater means or resources than us are going to kind of push us to the backside and say, no, we got this from here. And that's happened in the past, and it's still happening. They will use the numbers that we have, the majority of black folks, to elevate one middle-class black person, and that's cool, to a position. But then when they get in those positions, they take on the ideologies of the oppressor. See, the key is that anybody that's oppressing us is the enemy, even if they look just like us. And you said something about phrases, and I was thinking about different phrases that are abstract that ultimately sometimes gets us jammed up. Right. Like just a phrase like just black love. What does that even mean in a sense? It's almost as if it's an ahistorical look, as if black folks haven't been loving each other since we've been in this criminal enterprise. Black folk love black people. That ain't the issue.
Right.
That's ultimately like the issue, or black excellence. Now, my thing is that I don't even say the word black excellence. Because you would have to be ahistorical. Have we not been excellent through our existence on this planet? We've always been excellent. So black excellence is nothing new. Black love is nothing new. These are things that we ultimately had. And how do you think we're still here? There are groups of people who have been wiped off the planet. Why are we still here? It's the love that we ultimately had for each other. Now, listen, we're dealing in a criminal enterprise, and a lot of times we take on the mentality of the very masters who ultimately enslaved us. And not to say that our societies we came from we're perfect, which is why I ultimately say that we need a whole new frame of reference as to how we see reality, because we typically define reality based on the enemy. And I'll make it clear, the enemy is anyone who is destroying the planet, who doesn't have who doesn't have humanity's best interest at heart. That's the enemy. And that enemy could look just like us. So that's why I'm saying we got to go beyond the phenotype of an individual, or the gender of an individual. And we ultimately, if we're going to get free in this idea of revolutionary love, we have to deal with the decadent things within our culture, not the culture of the invaders, because we picked up some stuff and we brought some stuff. But if it's going to be revolutionary, we have to check all of those things that are decadent, even within our own cultures, of things we picked up and the things we brought here. Look, we've been remixing stuff since the slave ships. We've been rejecting the language and the ideologies of the oppressors since the slave ships. We've united on slave ships, right there in the holes, with chains, different cultures, and said, no, we got to come up with something unified. And most of the slave revolts took place when there were more women on the ships than men, which is interesting. But it's not interesting. The reason is because they slept on our sisters, and simply the sisters were the one, well, listen, maybe I'll get those keys right there, let the brothers out, and, we swinging right with them. So that ultimately becomes the thing, is that if it's going to be revolutionary, we have to overturn the whole system and how we define things. Because as Bobby Wright ultimately said, God rest his soul, revolutionary psychologist, how are you going to get free if all of your values and definitions come from the people that enslaved you in the first place? How? How can you even accept the same value system, beauty, culture, intelligence? The master's tool, as Audre Lorde would say, will never dismantle the master's house. That's plain and simple. We can't get free unless we're looking to ultimately overturn the whole system and bring something new into play. This thing has been running for about 400 years. It ain't gonna work, and it wasn't designed to work. And I know we come up with a lot of slick phrases like, oh man, listen, all we got to do is save our money. We contribute $400 billion. We could be our own country. And my thing is that there's no group in this country. See, that's another myth. Groups that thrive and survive in this country. And look, we're still here. That's number one. We're still here. With the levels of discrimination that exist and the racism and all forms of white supremacy that exist, we're still here. And thriving, comparatively thriving. But if we don't understand that it's going to take some form of not just us bootstrapping it, because we've done that. We did that coming right out of slavery, bootstrapping it. But we have to change the structure and the laws in this particular nation. In fact, I was thinking of Tamir Rice. So, we were going off when we voted. We were going crazy when we voted for Biden, and I'm not. And I get that. As James Baldwin says, sometimes a vote is a vote just to breathe. I get that, but we have to be careful when we think that just by putting a black face in a place, if the black face or Latino face in a place still has the same interpretation of the laws and the values of the very country that enslaved you, then brother, it doesn't make a difference. Right. When a cop whoops somebody's ass, are you mad because it's a white cop rather than a black cop? No. The way policing takes place has to be just overthrown. And right now, here's my thing, and people talk about abolish the police. I get that sentiment. But before we get there, we got to admit that we have some brainwashed folks who will take advantage of that very thing, and then we'll ultimately get the police coming back on steroids. So we have to be able to regulate seriously our own communities, similar to what the Nation of Islam does. If we ain't ready to do that, then we might want to be on all of the abolish, or to talk about abolishment. But that's what I'm saying, that the love has to transcend the individuals. It has to be an undying, if it's an undying love for the people, then all the other levels of love just filter right down, you know? If I'm loving all the people, you know, then if I'm loving all of the people, then ultimately that level of love just filters down to community relationships and individual relationships, and ultimately stuff like that.
Would you say that the way that society now has defined love with a sexual connotation, and would it be correct to say that's just a distraction?
Again, I'm back to the issue of value systems.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about what the ultimately systems and value. We have some beautiful systems, not all of them, but many of them, coming from the continent of Africa. I'm thinking of a couple of books that I think of by Sister Sambufu Some and her husband, Maladoma Some. They've written some beautiful, beautiful books that deal with relationships from an African-centered point of view. She wrote a book called The Spirit of Intimacy. Beautiful book. Not perfect, but I mean beautiful, and a foundational book. They've also wrote a book together, which is called We Have No Word for Sex. And it's interesting because they're connecting it to something deeper as opposed to just an act. They're saying that if we capture, in other words, if we capture the spirit or connect on a deeper level, then we could work, then the other stuff will kind of fall into place ultimately. But if we treat individuals as a means to the end, so for men, treating women as a means to an end as opposed to an end, or women treating men the same way, then it's not surprising that we have the ultimate results that we have. Look, we're all immersed in this culture, and we all have ultimately fall prey. But what I'm saying is that if 50% of the marriages that are people getting married or are ending in divorce, and that doesn't count the people who are unhappily married, that says something about the institution or the cultures in which these particular things are taking place. So when you talk about cheating, that's secondary, because of the particular, we have to come up to how are we going to agree upon how we're going to enter these things. It becomes difficult when we're just grabbing stuff, you know, things that seem good. You know, I my wife talks about this, and young ladies that I teach in school, they're like, look, we can't even go to the gym and work out without cats up in our face. We just trying to get our exercise on, our workout in, and brothers are all up in our faces. We just like, dude, we trying to work. A young lady, my wife's, one of my friends basically said that she goes to the gym where they're all women there. Why? Because she didn't want to be gawked at all day when she's just going to get her workout on. Or one of my students saying that she ain't married, she wears a wedding ring. We can't live in a culture that sees women as a means to an end, as opposed to an end, or simply a sexual object. That's not going to work. That ultimately is not going to work. So we can't be calling women our queens, and then we're treating them in a particular way. That doesn't work. It all has to pretty much be in sync. And the fact that women can't even walk down the street without somebody whistling at them or saying something at them out of the way is a travesty, but it's a product of the culture that we live in, that devalues women all the way. A misogynic culture that has no love or respect for women. So when we talk about Black women, we're talking about what we call intersectional now, but they used to call triple oppression back in the 60s and 70s. Race, gender, culture, etc. All these different things that ultimately come into play when we're talking about Black women. So we can't sit here and call them queens and then treat them in the manner that we do. Women in general, women across the board, I'm talking about Black women, Black venue, Black topics, I'm talking about, but just women in general, if we're going to have that level of respect for them. But again, if we don't change the models that we use, we're going to continue to raise young boys who look at women as just a piece of ass, as opposed to the true humanity and that they ultimately are,
And brother, I said when you came on, I said, Marv, I'm not going to bring nobody on because I want you to rock out.
Right.
But I have to bring someone on with you.
Come on.
As a surprise. I had to reach out because it was a surprise from me to you. That's why I said to you in the beginning that I'm not going to bring nobody on because I didn't want you to know that I was going to bring someone on.
Okay.
Because when we talk about this level of revolutionary love or revolution period, it will be remiss if we didn't bring this particular brother on as our elder.
No question.
One of our teachers. And I'm going to bring him on now if that's okay with you.
Oh, absolutely. Listen, we bring the mentors in. We are because they were. It's his revolutionary ideas that put a spark in us. That's why we're doing what we're doing.
That's right. And with that being said, everyone, please help me bring back to Real Talk with Kasim. We have our honorable brother, Marvin Walker, which is my cousin. And now we're going to bring other family, the honorable brother, Harold McKinney.
No question. What's up, my brother and elder? What's going on?
Good to see you, brother.
Absolutely, man.
It's a long time.
It's been a minute. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Looking just like your mama.
Yes. No question. And my brother Ronald said, "What's up to you?" By the way.
Oh man. Oh,
there it is.
I have to say this. We go. Your family. We go way back.
That's it.
Your parents, especially your father.
Yes.
Were a tremendous influence on not just my life, but my brothers and sisters. Because growing up during the time we grew up, under the circumstances and with the people, they created mental giants.
No question about it.
Mr. We used to call him the Big O.
Yeah,
but
Big O.
Mr. Walker influenced so many of us in so many different ways. And he helped set me on the path I'm traveling right now.
That's right.
Most of them brothers on that end of the projects, what's Mr. Butterball, Mr. Oscar Walker, Mr. Hansford.
Yes.
These are the men who shaped us. And I can't forget the mans.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. But it's good to see you, brother.
Good to see you, brother. Absolutely, man. Honored to be on with you.
See, so I put this together right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
Now, brother Howard, listen, King, let me ask you this question. As our elder brother, as well as our teacher, let me ask you this question. How do you see the taste for or the urgency for revolutionary love?
Well, when you say revolutionary love, I'm trying to make the connection between the love by which we were raised and the distraction that took place in the 80s and the 90s, and how, as in fact, when the year I came home from Vietnam, 1971, the United States had gone through a tremendous psychological change. And people like J. Edgar Hoover and his organization saw this as a means to interfere with what we were going through at the time. In those days, we experienced love. We had a connection. I'm not talking, see, today when we use that word, we have a tendency to relate it to the experience that we were directed into by those who ran the society. And that was a connection or a feeling based on our emotions.
Right.
That's not love. That can be defined as physical attraction, lust, reproductive desires, or the desire, the urge to reproduce. But undisciplined, it took us way off to the left. But as turns, if you're talking about going back into the love that we had when we were children, when we had men and women like those we had in the projects, that was love.
Yes.
Those people were connected. We were connected spiritually, philosophically, linguistically, and culturally. We were connected. So that's what that love was. What you may be talking about as revolutionary, we want to get away from the physical thing. The generation coming up now, they say, hey, man, I'm tired of the lust, man. In addition, they're bringing children into the world without the connection to raise them the way we were raised. So if we're talking about getting back to that, I'm on with it.
No question. No question about it. Yeah. Yeah.
Marv,
I totally agree. What's up?
would you say that most of us who have become wrapped up in this new way of living, according to how the government or society has depicted of how a man is supposed to be like this, a woman is supposed to be like this. You raise your children not the way that your forefathers told you. You raise them according to our rules and regulations. Do you see that as a revolutionary act on the government's behalf towards us?
I think the government agencies pretty much participate in status quo. So they're not trying to do anything that's necessarily revolutionary. And that remarks, typically when I say laws, there are laws on the books, there are no neutral laws. Laws are created and they're never neutral. It's about their administration. So I'll give you an example. So we'll talk about things like, say, the Constitution, made up document. Not everybody was at the table. So, if you honor the document, you honor it. But I have my thoughts and opinions on it. If everybody's not at the table, then it's not. Then it's not a fair document. But they'll go through what they call the strict interpretation, loose interpretation. In other words, the laws mean what white folk want the law to mean when it's particularly in their hands. The problem is that they'll administrate it. They don't administrate it fairly. And immersed in this culture and society, how could they, with all the biases that pretty much come about? Now, look, we, as Brother McKinney has said here, is that there were some things that we ultimately had. Well, of course, you and I, we come along a little bit later, that they basically had. The foundations were laid for us to basically build on those foundations. But I don't know if we were ready for the level of distractions that came to take us, veer us off of that path. As he mentioned, the COINTELPRO, all those things that were designed to pretty much destroy, or whether it be the crack or the heroin, or all those things designed to pretty much take us off the path. One interesting thing I would say is that when we're at the point of that real, let's overturn this thing, the Nixon administration says, I got him. Black capitalism. So we'll ultimately start veering them away from the idea of overturning this particular society because it ain't working. And that's not just Black folks, but you're talking about the white students who were protesting the Vietnam War. as Brother McKinney and my brother Leslie were, of course, in that particular war, you know, a place where we shouldn't have been. It's a continuation of global capitalism, you know, global expansionism. But ultimately, those things were those distractions that Brother Harold talked about, that I don't know if we were ready for that, because look, think of the foundation was laid right there. Just look at the city of Passaic right there in that projects for the next generation, if uninterrupted, to be an unstoppable force. But the other thing is that we don't want to look back at the level of things that our elders ultimately did. I see a bunch of new books coming out, you know, about this and that, and about the first Negro. Yeah, I'm the first person who wrote a book about this, but if you know our history, there ain't nothing new under the sun that hasn't been written by African scholars. These books are out there. So look, Michelle Alexander writes The New Jim Crow, you know, and listen, it's a great book. But Shashi McIntyre wrote a book probably about 20, 30 years before that book, which dealt with the same particular issue. But then we're talking about who's evaluating. And as one of my, a person I follow, Dr. Greg Carr, talks about, look, you got two structures. You have a governing structure and a social structure. When we talk in governance structure, that's Black folks talking to Black folk. You know, that's us seeing ourselves through our true eyes and our true vision, as opposed to eyes that are imposed on us. So my thing is that in terms of the system ain't trying to cut us no breaks. Ever. And it
never will.
Never will. If anything, it's just about co-opting whatever it is that we are ultimately trying to do. You know, as Brother McKinney mentioned already, you know, the power that we had in the movement, which was diverted into ultimately something else. Now, it wasn't perfect, but it was a good enough model for us to build on and correct.
And to learn from the mistakes they made.
Absolutely. Yes.
One of the things, traveling, not just outside of the country, but traveling inside the United States is an eye-opener, especially for young people in places like Passaic. In July, there's a brother who I coached at Central High School here in Miami. His name is Edwin Shepherd.
Right.
He spends a lot of time in Botswana. We're getting ready to take a group of 6 students from Miami Central High School to Botswana.
Oh, wow. Amazing.
And part of the purpose is to expose our children. Edwin brought a group of, I think it was 8 or 10 Botswana students here last year.
Right.
So this is the exchange end of it.
Oh, wow.
We don't go deep enough in our studies because the schools don't go deep enough. Fortunately, again, growing up in the projects, being around men and women who were the first generation out of the South.
Yes.
Their parents was the first generation born outside of chains.
Yeah.
So your father, my father, your grandmother, Cassian, they were a generation of people who came to the North looking for a way to support their families. Right. Now, what we have not done is understand why conditions are the way they are today. And part of the way to road to understanding is to look at the role that the Roman Catholic Church played in forming all education around the world. They had their hands deeply involved in fact, the Europeans who came to this part of the world came on a mission through the church. And part of their mission was, if you run into any people who don't know Jesus, you are now authorized to kill them, to enslave them, to take all their lands and possessions forever. Right. So that is written. That is called the Dum Diversas, and the other one is called the Doctrine of Discovery.
The Doctrine of Discovery, right?
Now, those things are part of the New World Law. The Constitution you just mentioned is a corrupted
No question about it.
Imitation of what how they don't say people who were called the Algonquins.
Yes.
Benjamin Franklin spent years among those people studying. When I say those people, I'm talking about our people in that part of the United States. Anyway, bring it back up to the point.
No, you're right. Absolutely.
We have to understand the nature of a beast in order to fight the beast.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
We've been surviving, or we've been thriving, or we've been repeating the mistakes of the past, thinking that marching on Washington, sitting in restaurants, demonstrating in the streets, and people have hardened their hearts against that. They don't care.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You can protest and cry all you want to. They don't care. My friend, and I love him even to this day, Bob Marley, in one of his songs, I said, total destruction is the only solution. Now, when people hear that, they become afraid. Oh, you want to tear down the White? No. We want to destroy the mentality that makes you think you're superior to me.
Absolutely.
I'm a student of music for years.
Right.
I'm now being molded into the bata drum, but my drum is the djembe.
Mm-hmm.
And there are groups that are formed in which the brothers from the continent are going to Europe or coming to the United States, and they're appealing through the drum to bring the white people. When I say white, I'm not talking about pigmentation.
Yeah.
I'm talking about a mentality and a behavior that when they say I'm white, they're suggesting, like Malcolm said, I'm the boss.
I'm boss. Yes.
So
yes.
the brothers who bring the djembe culture to the United States and to Europe have in their hearts, we're going to change the white man with the drum. No, you ain't, because his nature is 180 degrees the opposite of ours.
Mm-hmm.
By nature, even their society is predatory. They live off our blood, our sweat, our tears, and our lives.
Mm.
I mentioned this woman, Margaret Sanger.
Yes.
Margaret Sanger's work is part of the foundation of modern day America. In fact, it was so deep that Hitler studied her to the T. He admired her and what she did. But now I said all of that to say this. We've got to go back in our homes. The school ain't going to teach our children anything.
Right.
Like your father and my father raised us. When we did anything, they was in the schools all the time. They was always at the schools. But things and attitudes have changed. So that means we got to go back with the revolutionary love in our homes.
That's right.
With our children and our grandchildren. And you just mentioned the most important thing I've lived for years, and that is the woman.
Yes.
You can, anywhere I've gone on this planet, I can determine the nature of that society by how the women are treated in public.
That's what Malcolm X said. That's exactly what Malcolm X said.
Patriarchy is so deeply embedded in every society in the world, is the reason behind all women being disrespected. Now, going back to, and I'm gonna shut up for a while, going back to 1971, in Berkeley, California, the wealthy young white women took off their bras in public and burned them.
Mm-hmm.
That was the beginning of the women's liberation movement.
Right.
But it had become infiltrated by the agents who were operatives of the FBI and Mr. Hoover. So they infiltrated everything.
Yes.
And what they did, they twisted everything off their natural path, or the path that you just spoke about, which will frighten most of our people to death when you're talking about changing the system. A lot of our people have been chosen, not a lot, let me rephrase that. A group of our people have been hand chosen and brought into a certain part of American society as examples. Look, he's living the life of luxury. You can do the same thing if you work hard. It don't work that way.
No, and as you said, it was never designed to ultimately be here. When you think about folks of color globally in this particular region, I'm talking about specifically, you're brought here to work. That's it. You were
period
to ultimately to work. And as you talked about, it's just not in it. It has to ultimately be destroyed. But now I always say along the way, it's like the Panthers talked about this idea of, you know, survival pending revolution, because folks still have to eat. We have to eat. You know, we have to ultimately have housing. But if it's going, again, if our interest is, that's what I call a revolutionary love. Well, I don't call it that. The Panthers is that we're talking about everybody coming in. We're not just talking about a couple of Negroes or Latinos. Everybody, their mama, their kids, the dogs, the cats. We're talking about freedom and liberation for everyone, because that's the only way to ultimately protect anyone.
We have to be very careful with that.
Right. Go ahead.
We have to be very careful because our past. Yes, sir.
Yeah. No question. That's a good point.
Our past dictates to us that we never learned how to deal with those people we made allies. And when those allies turned against us, we have to learn how to deal with our traitors.
Yeah.
The way the white man deals with his.
Absolutely.
Now we have every group who calls himself a minority.
Right.
Has fallen under the wings and the umbrella of what we started way back in 1867.
Right.
Everybody else has come here and ridden on our backs, our suffering and our accomplishments.
Right.
I have a problem, and it's my personal problem.
Right.
Because I don't use the word black or Afro-American. We are the indigenous melanated people of the earth.
Mm-hmm.
We gave birth to even to the people who call themselves white. We gave their birth.
Absolutely.
But because of their mischief making and the shedding of blood, they were cast out.
Mm-hmm.
And these are historically documented facts. That's part of the reason there's so much hatred for us today. Because when they go back, they equate themselves to Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, and they were expelled because of their mischief making. Mm-hmm. Not because they desired to be as smart as their creators. No, that wasn't it. There's a long list of books that have been written going back to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad.
Right.
But we'll talk about that another time. But when you talk about
I absolutely no, I get that, because that's why I say for us, our entry point is this concept of blackness. But I also know that we're talking about a global beast.
Oh yes, that's right.
We're talking about a global beast, and I see movements within the black community that I think are detrimental, which are kind of like ADOS, which is simply saying just those, we can't afford to splinter off blackness the way that is beginning to ultimately happen. And when I talk about allies, I'm talking about folks who are, John Brown was an ally. I'm talking about people who are willing to put their life on the line to liberate the planet. That's kind of like my thing. That's my path to allyship. If you ain't willing to do that, then you're not an ally to us.
That's right.
You're ultimately an enemy. That's why we can't get caught up on phenotype, because we have folks that look just like us that serve the interests of the master. So what we're talking about is, look, we're talking about folks who are thinking about liberation for all. And then after, go ahead, brother.
Again, when we talk about liberation, we have to talk about liberating ourselves from that very system you just explained.
No question.
It is a global, like a spider's web. Everything they do is connected. I was forced to purchase another car.
Right.
The old car I had, I enjoyed it because mileage, I can go from here to Georgia. Here to Gainesville on a tank of gas.
Right.
But what has happened, there's a connection that has been made based on economics. Everybody thinks that Russia is a communist country. It's not communist. Russia's capitalist.
Yes, it is. Absolutely.
And what they're talking about is things we've got to take back control of what is naturally ours. See, you set that government up in the Ukraine. We didn't do that. You did that. That was part of our country.
Mm-hmm.
But the point I really need to get across is we've got to liberate the way we think.
Yeah.
And really go deeply into finding the information that's going to help us take that liberation.
That's right. Yeah. And yeah.
When I came to Miami, I ran into a lot of opposition because I grew up in New Jersey, and my accent gave way. And I had to realize that I came to a city that is the southernmost major city in the country.
Yeah.
Florida is the only state that never surrendered to the Union.
Right.
So the way Florida operates is still based off the old Confederacy. So the first thing we have to do is change or give our people a starting at the family. We can't change anybody else until we started on.
No.
So what happened is we gave our children a set of spectacles. They could see the reality. They weren't distracted. So fortunately for a long 20-something years, I was a police officer assigned to the school system.
Mm-hmm.
So I had direct contact with our youngsters.
Right.
And after it was found out what was going on, this man ain't just teaching them track and basketball. This man he done got them Haitians over at Horace Mann Unified. We got to get him out and promote him, get him out them schools. But we have to be able and willing to deal with that. Yeah. Because using their system, we ain't gonna go but so far.
Well, and
you know that.
Well, absolutely. But that's why I say when we're operating in those particular systems, and I have teacher friends who sees it similar to the way you see it. We're going to be as revolutionary. This is you're saying. We're going to disrupt the particular system as it was designed, knowing that we know that method there is not going to overthrow the system because it needs to go. But if we're going to operate in it, we need to be like those slaves on the plantation, breaking tools and doing whatever they had to do to make sure that this system that you have is slowing down enough so that when we're ready to kick it to the curb, it'll be ready. So those students, you stop those students from being totally brainwashed by the system, as I did in the school, and many of my friends, Brother Marco Martinez, who was on the chat, does that every single day. And many other teachers do that every single day. Make sure, no. I understand the direction they're trying to take you, but we're going to make sure that you're going to question every bit of knowledge that you get from this particular day forward. And as you said, if we got them with those new lenses on, then they're going to ultimately see the reality. And that's enough. That's a starting point. Because as you said, if we're going to operate in these particular systems that weren't designed for us, we got to ultimately operate in a different way. When we're understanding that this is what you're doing and what I'm doing is just temporary, it's just like, again, like the Panthers say, survival pending the ultimate overthrow of this whole system, because that's the only thing that's going to get it done. Oh, what happened, brother?
I can hear you.
Yeah, I know you had commercials now, bro. I ain't been here in a minute.
Yeah.
You got commercials, man. Oh man, see, bro, you got commercials now. I didn't know, man. Who's funding you now, bro?
Now look, we go towards the end of the show. We have a thing we call word embracement.
Okay.
Now what we do is I take 3 words, and being that we got an elder brother Howard, it goes to both of you. I'll give you one. I'm going to give you 3 words, one at in chronological order. 1, 2, 3. You give me your take on the word, and then we're gonna ask everybody to close out. And we definitely got to meet up with Marv. We're gonna come back to his schedule because I got to bring some other brothers that come back on here with y'all. Brother Eugene Bay. I got some brothers we're gonna get up on the show.
No question.
The first word I have for you, brothers, and although brothers say he don't like this word, use this word, but I'm gonna ask you because this is a word that's often traveling through our community. That word is black pride. Whoever would like to.
What are you saying? What are we doing with the words now?
Give me your perspective of the word. Whatever comes to you about
Black pride. I'm gonna go with what Brother Harold was saying before. Possible distraction. I mean, that's my ultimate point. Because I say distraction because it's as if we say these things as if we haven't been these particular things. And when you talk about my father, your father, and many others, they were already black and prideful. You didn't have to say it. You saw it, right? They didn't have to say that we're black and proud, although that helps. They were already that, and they were that in action. You know?
There it is.
Right.
There it is. There it is, brother. You said it. You said it. You said it. You know, Kasim, to add on to, if I may,
Absolutely.
what Brother Walker just said, it's all about activities and actions and relationships. You know, I have conversations with my family. I love them, man. They ain't nobody like the McKinneys.
That's right.
And that's just me saying that now. Don't take it out.
Yeah, no question.
Yeah, I speak in terms of always. I love Jesus. You don't have to tell me that, sis.
Yeah, right.
I can see it in your behavior.
Right.
You know, like you just said, brother, it's the pride we have in. I have to go back to the early 50s and the late 40s when I saw how our parents and grandparents carried themselves, how they related to each other. And as a result of watching them, we related to each other.
Right.
We learned to protect one another, to play with one another, to live. That was the pride.
That's right.
Our action towards each other.
Right.
You know, I hear a lot and I see a lot on the TV set, these, I don't know what they call them, reality shows. Yes. And I see the brothers talking about their pride in Africa and their pride in being black. But when Africa is brought up, they nut up.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
We are the indigenous human beings on this planet.
Right.
We're the indigenous people.
Right.
And to understand the accomplishments, despite everything that's been done to us, every major invention that operates and runs this country, we gave it to them or they took it from us.
Yeah, right.
So what greater pride do we have in knowing that we are the source that they're taking their inventions from? Walk with your pride, walk with dignity. Show your love that you have a connection with your brother and sister, your cousin, your neighbor, your friend.
That's right. That's right. Absolutely. I don't know. Kasim, what happened to you, brother? Where you go? So let's see. I guess we have to come up with a word unless he comes back quickly. So he said black. I have a word for you, brother. What do you think about this word that I've talked about it before? Black excellence. When you hear people saying that now, black excellence, what does that make you think? What comes to mind?
Well, again, no matter what field of endeavors we involve ourselves in, we take it to the maximum.
Okay.
In fact, we do so well at it that people all over the world imitate us.
Yeah.
Excellence is something that is an idea, but we've been taught since we were children to always do our best, no matter what it is. Do your best.
Right.
I can't ask no more than do your best.
That's right.
You know, excellence, again, we point out that there are so many things that are thrown at us to take us off focus.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things is we push our children in schools, which is a result of what our great grandparents and grandparents did with us and did for us because of the conditions they lived under. They didn't want us to come up through that again. But today, I'm really amazed at the fact that everybody wants to be a rap artist. And Muhammad Ali said something one time when Mike Douglas asked him what advice he had for youngsters who wanted to be a fighter. And he broke it down statistically and said, out of every 100,000 young men born in this country, only one may make it to be a good boxer.
Right.
And when we look at the thing, my grandmother used to say, Harold, I don't care what you do in life. Even if you decide to work on the garbage route, you be the best garbage man on the route.
That's right.
So those are the things that we were instilled with.
Right.
So like your brother Leslie. In fact, I just had a conversation about Leslie this morning with Frank Mosley.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah. Because Leslie, we grew up in a time when scoring on each other was the thing. Yeah. Leslie was a master.
Yeah, he was a master. Yeah.
He was a master. Steve Hansford, Leslie, Ralph DeGroat, Garfield Kendricks, these cats, we mastered the ability to think rapidly. That's what these rappers are doing today.
Absolutely.
As they say, they spitting out words that are going through their minds. But these guys would get on you to a point and you can't fight.
Yeah, right.
You got to laugh.
That's
you have to laugh.
You got to laugh at it. Yeah.
So we worked on being the best at what we knew, what we loved.
In fact, it's funny. You remind me of a story of Leslie, because you remember on the Capitol Theater, one time there was a concert there, and Brother Lawrence was telling me that Leslie was scoring on the guard so bad that he said, he just let him in free. He said, yo, you get in.
Oh man.
Absolutely.
And again, when we use the word Black excellence, we've got to really take a look at our past, at our accomplishments from time immemorial. Everything that Europe and the United States is today is a result of us and our influence on them and in them. We've always been a people of excellence. When I say it in that terms, we always struggled to find the balance and harmony within ourselves and our environment.
Right.
So we mastered sacred geometry. We mastered linguistics. We mastered the arts and sciences. We mastered the ability to speak in different tongues. See, they didn't tell anybody those things, but when we talk about Black excellence, let's be the example in our homes, in our communities for the little ones to look up to. So we can return to that.
And the other thing I wanted to add to that is, and ultimately the willingness to share that excellence with the world, because we weren't trying to hoard it. Whatever it was, the idea wasn't to hoard it, to keep it from anyone, whether it be the—
That's never been our nature.
No,
that's never been our nature.
No.
Our people have always shared.
Right.
With whoever came into our midst or whomever we found who was lacking wherever we went. That's always been our nature, to share.
Right.
But the big thing is, we didn't realize that the people with whom we were sharing this did not have the same mindset and the same response that we had.
Had a different agenda, but I always say what we were doing wasn't wrong.